Hey everyone, welcome to Friday. Thanks for joining us for 9 News at Noon. I'm Matt Venezio. We'll start here. We're learning new details about a shooting yesterday on Columbus Dunn Drive. 18-year-old Kassidy Jackson has died from her injuries after being rushed to the hospital yesterday. We're told that Jackson was shot yesterday around 2 o'clock. Authorities say Paulasia Banks was identified as a potential shooter and later turned herself into law enforcement officers. Now, she was booked into the East Baton Rouge Parish Prison on a first-degree murder charge.
On January 8, 2026, Baton Rouge police responded to a reported shooting at a residence on Columbus Dunn Drive. Inside the home, officers found 18-year-old Kassidy Jackson suffering from a gunshot wound. Emergency medical services transported her to a local hospital, where she later died from her injuries. Within hours, law enforcement identified 19-year-old Paulasia Banks as a suspect. Banks later turned herself in with legal counsel and was booked into East Baton Rouge Parish Prison on a charge of first-degree murder. Authorities classified the incident as domestic-related, but the precise sequence of events inside the home remains under investigation. This is Facebook Crime. We deliver clear, factual, and up-to-date true crime stories. Subscribe and turn on notifications to stay informed on the latest cases and investigations.
What you mean, where? You don't see the 613 middle part bus time 40 inch down? I didn't tell y'all girls. I be the bitch that do it.
Kassidy Jackson was 18 years old at the time of her death and lived at the Columbus Dunn Drive residence in Baton Rouge. According to family statements and public records, she had recently graduated high school and was in the process of planning her next steps, including work and potential vocational opportunities. Friends and relatives described her as socially active, with a visible online presence and close relationships within her peer group. Jackson's personal life, including her romantic relationships, became a central focus of the investigation. Law enforcement later confirmed that multiple individuals connected to Jackson were present in or near her home on the day of the shooting, placing her interpersonal relationships at the center of the case timeline. Paulasia Banks was 19 years old at the time of the incident. Investigators identified Banks as having had a prior romantic relationship with Jackson. The exact status of that relationship leading up to January 8th remains disputed. Banks' attorney has stated that the two were involved for several months and that communication between them had recently changed. Police records and witness accounts suggest the relationship had ended or was unstable. Banks arrived at Jackson's residence accompanied by two other individuals. Their identities and specific roles are documented in police reports, but have not been fully detailed publicly due to the ongoing nature of the case. Investigators determined that digital communication played a role in the events leading up to the shooting. Social media activity, including blocking and unblocking on TikTok, was cited in statements made by the defense and referenced in arrest documents. According to the defense, Banks noticed she had been blocked on TikTok by Jackson shortly before the incident and decided to go to Jackson's home to address the situation in person. Police have not publicly confirmed whether messages, calls, or posts immediately preceded the confrontation, but electronic devices were seized as part of the investigation. Analysts are reviewing phone records, social media logs, and timestamps to establish whether online interactions contributed to escalation. Earlier in the day, Jackson was inside her home with at least one other person. At approximately mid-afternoon, Banks arrived at the Columbus Dunn Drive residence with two additional individuals. According to the arrest affidavit, Jackson answered the door and allowed entry. Shortly after arrival, a confrontation began inside the home. Police documents state that an altercation occurred involving Banks and another individual associated with Jackson. The location of each person inside the residence during this time remains under reconstruction by investigators. Witness statements indicate that a physical fight broke out inside the home. The duration of the altercation and the specific actions of each participant are disputed. What is established is that a firearm became involved during the confrontation. The defense has claimed that the gun was not initially intended to be fired and that it discharged during a struggle. According to this account, the weapon fell to the ground and went off accidentally, striking Jackson. Law enforcement has stated that preliminary evidence does not support an accidental discharge. Officials cited scene evidence, witness statements, and the positioning of individuals as reasons for disputing the defense's claim. Jackson sustained a gunshot wound during the incident. The exact trajectory, firing distance, and angle are detailed in autopsy and forensic reports, which remain under seal pending court proceedings. Investigators are analyzing whether the firearm was fired at close range and who had control of the weapon at the time of the incident. The firearm itself was recovered and submitted for ballistic testing. Authorities are determining ownership, whether it was brought to the scene, and if it had been used in any prior incidents. Following the shooting, Banks and the two individuals who arrived with her left the residence. Police reports indicate that no immediate aid was rendered to Jackson by Banks before leaving the scene. Emergency services were eventually contacted, though investigators are still establishing who made the call and how much time elapsed before first responders arrived. Jackson was transported to the hospital in critical condition and later pronounced dead. Baton Rouge police secured the scene and initiated a homicide investigation. Detectives conducted interviews with witnesses, collected physical evidence, and reviewed surveillance footage from nearby locations. Key investigatory steps included processing the scene for ballistic and forensic evidence, conducting gunshot residue testing, interviewing all individuals present or nearby, reviewing cell phone data and social media activity, coordinating with medical examiners on autopsy findings. Later the same day, Paulasia Banks turned herself in to authorities, accompanied by an attorney. She was booked on a charge of first-degree murder. Additional charges, including aggravated burglary, were referenced in early court filings due to the circumstances surrounding entry. Banks remains in custody as the case proceeds through the legal system. The defense maintains that the shooting was accidental and occurred during a chaotic confrontation. Prosecutors argue that the evidence supports intent, or at minimum, actions consistent with a homicide charge. The court will ultimately evaluate witness credibility, forensic evidence, digital communication records, the legality of entry into the home, control and use of the firearm. Jackson's family has publicly disputed the accidental shooting claim and called for accountability. Community members have raised broader questions about relationship violence, youth conflict, and the role of social media in real-world disputes. Despite the arrest, several key issues remain unresolved. Who brought the firearm to the residence, whether the shooting was intentional or reckless, the full role of the two additional individuals, how digital interactions influenced the confrontation, and whether the incident could have been prevented. As of now, the case remains active and pending trial. Investigators continue to analyze evidence, and pre-trial motions are expected. The final determination of responsibility will be made in court based on the totality of evidence presented. Thanks for watching. Did you find this case informative? If you want more true crime stories, don't forget to subscribe and turn on notifications to stay informed on the latest cases and investigations.